So, change really is local. All change is local, and it's deeply personal. And I'm really grateful to have Monisha as a friend and somebody to learn with and learn from. So again, this is a really special opportunity, and as we build this out using platforms like this in the coming years, we're really going to lean on great partners, and one of which in recent months has been the U.S. Department of State. I've had the chance to travel to Morocco, to Bosnia and Herzegovina for the State Department on tours, meeting young people. And there's an incredible leader, the special advisor on global youth issues at State. I want to kind of just emphasize that State it's the partner that we all need because they have global reach. And I think we should be, all of you after this session should go right up and talk to him. So please give a warm welcome to Andy Rabins.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. How's everybody feeling? You all caffeinated, energized, got your cup of coffee, your Red Bull, something? Well, my name's Andy Rabins. I'm the brand new Special Advisor for Global Youth Issues at the State Department in the Office of the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. This role is focused on helping the U.S. government better engage young people internationally to both solve the pressing challenges of the day, ISIL, Ebola, Russia-Ukraine, climate change, Middle East peace, the influx of unaccompanied minors from Central America, and a host of others. But also, and more importantly, in helping to build connectivity and networks to shape that world of tomorrow. And that's where you all come in both today, the challenges of today, and also really shaping those challenges of tomorrow. As has been mentioned over the past few days, this is an incredible moment for young people, both because of the demographic changes that are taking place, but also the technological changes that are taking place. Youth numbers, the fact that 65% of the globe is under the age of 30. The fact that power, the diffusion of power from hierarchical institutions to individuals and networks. The changing media landscape. My boss, the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs, Rick Stengel, talks about the box of chocolate model over to a grocery store aisles of media platforms to be able to amplify voice and get your message out in unprecedented ways. And finally, the leveling power of technology. And all of these trends are empowering young people in unprecedented ways. They're favoring young people to get their voices heard and to be networked in ways that haven't been seen in the past. So on behalf of the State Department, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here to moderate today's Global Town Hall and to have the chance to connect with you all, and particularly as well with our colleagues overseas who are both watching and who we'll have a chance to dialogue with momentarily. And I would like to also thank my colleagues from the State Department, the Bureau of International Information Programs, and the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs for helping to make tonight for my friends in parts of the globe, today's event happen. We're going to keep the session very interactive. We've got a number of mics in the room. You can tweet in questions at This Is My Era, and we want to hear both about how this first inaugural Millennial Campus Network's inaugural Global Youth Survey has gone and some of the insights that have been produced, but then also have a global conversation about some of the challenges and efforts that folks are wrestling with in the respective student organizations or in the respective personal efforts. And we have an amazing group of panelists, academics, government practitioners, youth leaders who are going to come up very shortly and be able to engage with everyone, to field questions, to provide some insights on how some of these challenges and ideas can be hopefully overcome. But before we jump into the panel discussion, I'd like to bring up Daniel Sullivan, the Millennial Campus Network's Youth Policy Representative in charge of coordinating the 2014 Global Youth Survey, to talk a bit about the survey, some of the outcomes, and to spark a dialogue that then will continue in the moments after. So Daniel.
Thank you, guys.
I have to be honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous, so I need you guys to do me a favor and just a round of applause for Andy, for the State Department, and to help me calm down. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. All right. So thank you all for being here today. My name is Daniel Sullivan. I'm a civil engineer by education. I'm an educator by profession, and a person who is wholly committed to supporting youth and access to the resources and information that will help us tackle the world's toughest problems, and I believe that we can do that. I chose to show this photo of a chance when I got to interview Governor Michael Dukakis. Hopefully all of you know him or know his story. But as part of the If I Were President campaign, in part to remind myself of the type of person that I want to and I aspire to be, which is a dedicated and a passionate civil servant. This weekend, we've heard from some incredible change agents. We've collaborated together, sharing our challenges, our best practices, and establishing lifelong networks to support our collaborative growth in addressing common goals. The momentum is truly tremendous, and I appreciate being here with all of you to gain from your knowledge and experience. And I just want to take a minute to say thank you to Sam and Abigail, the MCN team, to Lynn, to the students and the staff here, all of the people behind the scenes, their entire community that's been so welcoming to everybody here, to Andy Rabins and the Department of State for their partnership, to the youth leaders who are going to be joining us on the screen shortly, to those that are joining us live via the live stream, and last but certainly not least, to all of you who made the commitment to come down here to be part of this event, to be part of this movement, and to really to learn and to grow with us. So a round of applause for everybody who was involved with this program. So, I had the privilege of working on the first ever Global Youth Survey in partnership with MCN, a vision that Sam and Abigail had to grow their assessment tool and gain a better understanding of the landscape of youth organizations, not just in the U.S., but around the globe. And this assessment grid that they've developed, it was developed to measure specific outcomes in the Millennial Fellowship Program that the Abigail leads up in Boston, a tremendous effort to really support youth organizations and leadership. The results are what we're going to present to you today, and I'm so happy to be here to share this with you guys, and I really look forward to receiving your feedback and listening to the panel discussion that we have after this. So the Global Youth Survey provides us with an in-depth understanding of what defines successful youth organizations and youth supporting organizations, and what's holding them back from continuing to grow. So using this survey, we can understand regional and global trends in these youth initiatives. What are our common challenges, and how can we address these together so that we can scale our impact? We had over 100 country coordinators from over 30 different countries that volunteered their time to share this survey with youth leaders in their networks and in their countries. And the result was, in just 1 month, we had over 130 organizational leaders responding from more than 45 different countries, including local organizations all the way up to national and international organizations. The response was truly overwhelming, but in a very good way, and I was really so happy to see that. So here you can see geographically where the responses are coming from. The green bars indicate where organizations are based out of that responded to the survey, and the variable red shaded countries are actually those that are represented in the survey, so a national organization or an international organization that works in multiple countries. So over half of the world, you can see, is represented in some way in this survey effort. And we're hoping, again, to continue to grow this, and the vision is that in the future, you will see every country in there with a deep red that everybody is participating in the survey, and we're getting a lot of good feedback. So this graph is displaying how these organizations are addressing the Millennium Development Goals, focusing on, if you look at the global average, so the kind of shaded gray parts. So most notably, these groups are working to improve gender equality and the empowerment of women, and the alleviation of global poverty and extreme hunger. Those were the two main focuses of the organizations that participated in this survey. But not necessarily, and again, I want to stress that this is not representative of youth organizations around the globe. Of course, this is just a small sample of them, but it really gives us a flavor for what we can expect when we're trying to grow this initiative. So to accomplish these goals, the organizations use a number of different functions. So the most common being, of course, awareness raising. We have to spread the message and make people aware of this work. Again, in the second top was the provision of services, networking, consulting, and fundraising, of course. So interestingly, you see on the far right here, not many organizations define their role as influencing political agendas or policy, which is something we'll talk a little bit about later. So here you can see the issues that these groups reported struggling with the most. So on the bottom is the issue, of course, that we all know that is the biggest obstacle that we all face, which is fundraising. Who would have guessed, right? More than 75% of organizations have significant challenges in raising funds for their work. Poverty and access to education also present significant challenges to these organizations and the communities that they serve. Over 50% of organizations reported these as significant concerns to them. There's a lot more information that I'm not sharing, and we'll publish in a report and share that with you guys later. But I want to get to the interesting part of the panel discussion. But before we get there, I want to share some direct feedback from the surveys themselves, from these youth leaders of organizations around the world. So as I read these and as you read along with me, take note of the comments which resonate with you and the challenges that you also face within your organization. So first and foremost, looking at the organizational structure, there's a need to increase organizational capacity through recruiting full-time staff training, and securing more office equipment like computers. In order to grow, and this is a separate one, in order to grow, the organization needs a permanent venue or office, which will help it conduct all of the training workshops and collaboration meetings. We don't have a problem motivating students to volunteer or donate their time to do work, but we struggle to find a venue to do that, which slows us down. So thinking about education and employment, the high population of unemployed youth has dangerously contributed to the burgeoning pool of youths that are available to commit crime and perpetuate violence. Proactive students are those that enjoy doing more than you ask, compared with apathetic students, i.e. those who don't end up convinced of the importance of their participation in these activities. Culture and religion can sometimes undermine the motivation for education. And lastly, the current political polarization makes it nearly impossible to influence changes in education and economic opportunities for youth. So again, these are direct quotes from some of the youth that had responded to these survey questions. Information technology was a huge issue that a lot of people raised within the survey. So new technologies are being being used increasingly by a small percentage of the population, less than 2%, due to low literacy, lack of local content, a low number of technology professionals, and especially the unwillingness of girls to embrace technology because of social cultural reasons. Some careers are only for boys. I know we've heard or seen this. Inadequate logistics or infrastructure. So, such as computers, transportation requirements, telephones, and stable internet. Of course, significant issues and barriers. We need equipment, computers namely, to train more people. We have a commitment to serve, to be useful to our communities, but we don't have the necessary materials. In transportation, most of our team leaders and volunteers are students who do not own their own mode of transportation, and so our getting around to events and meetings becomes difficult. Some of our volunteers cannot attend events as it is a distance for them to travel and they do not have transport. Those who do have transport to assist as best they can, but sometimes the transportation is just not available to accommodate all the volunteers that want to participate. No reliable public transportation, so youth in rural areas have very little chances of improving their social status if they stayed in their areas. Instead, they opt to internally move into a city where they feel they have more access to work and education. In terms of fundraising, media coverage, especially marketing and communication strategies, can help expand the audience for our NGO. And legal barriers. This was a very interesting one that I hadn't even considered. No NGO in Morocco can fundraise without being registered under the province's municipality office. And this registration process, just to be formally recognized, in and of itself is long and tedious and has to be done almost every year. Political and governmental. So inaccessibility to some basic data of the administrative authorities. And this is something that I'll come back to in a minute. And again, corruption has seriously undermined the development in these areas that this organization works in. I wanted to finally share, and I had mentioned at the beginning of this that a lot of this was tied to the work that Abigail has done in developing the assessment tool. So some of the feedback that we had relating to that, and I didn't show the graphs because they're quite complicated and tough to read. So I wanted to just share some of the evaluations from these. So 60% of organizations received support from a university or another organization, either in kind or financial support. Yet less than 20% of these organizations have obtained funding to cover this year's current budget. So where is this gap? Youth organizations are eager to form partnerships, as I'm sure you all are here for that, and have discussed and agreed on how to and with who to partner, but yet only half of these groups have written or documented these plans. And finally, 65% of organizations have at least 4 formal leadership roles and titles, but under 25% of them have identified how and who will fill these next year's leadership roles. So these are just some of the main issues and concerns that a lot of the youth in the survey had brought up to us. And so out of these, and in sort of working with the team and working with all of the country coordinators, we've come up with a couple recommendations that we wanted to share with you guys to gain your feedback, and we'll talk about in the discussion here. So just a couple ideas to share with you about this. Oops. So the first one, there exists, there's an organization called Taking It Global. They partnered with the UN, and they've created a website that kind of does something in somewhat similar to what I'll share with you. But what we recommend is a portal in which youth organizations can submit their organization to be listed publicly, so that people can go in and very easily find, search by region, search by country. You can identify, so by function, you see fundraising is the F, A is awareness, G is providing goods, services, networking and consulting. We can also see the MDGs that they are addressing. So enabling people to easily go online and search what are the other youth organizations in my region that might be doing similar work that I can then go and talk to. And really to just have this information very easily publicly available would be very critical. Recognition. So I want to share with you guys a short story because so many of our speakers in the past couple of days have shared some very inspirational stories. And unfortunately, I don't have such a great story to share with you like that, but I do want to share an important thing. And that is the recognition is so critical. And it comes in places where you wouldn't really expect it. So I started working with Sam and Abigail in March. And just after I started working with them, only a couple weeks into it, they wrote me a thank you note just for joining the team, for being part of the movement, and it was something that I really appreciated receiving right then, but I put it in my bag and just kind of forgot about it. And months later, I was doing a lot of work and going through the survey and kind of pouring through it and just kind of beating myself up for getting involved in this and what did I do? But then, out of chance, in my frustration, I was looking through my bag and I pulled out this thank you note from them, and it just reminded me of who I'm working with and why I'm doing it. And this recognition is so critical. And I mentioned this for 2 reasons. It's both a top-down and a bottom-up. So you as organizational leaders need to take on this role of being sure that you're recognizing and appreciating the people that you're working with. So it's not just the students and recognizing the students that you are working with, but then also there's this recognition that we also need from organizations larger than our own. So if we can gain recognition from organizations that do work on a national or international level, if they recognize that your organization is doing good work, then that makes it so much easier for you to go out and attract fundraising, to attract other partners. So having this recognition is critical, both recognizing the people that you work with and recognizing the people the recognition from people that you want to work with. Sharing resources. This is going to sound, and probably some of you are going to look at me like I'm crazy. But I'd like to throw this out there and get your feedback on it. I think that organizations should be much more open in terms of where they're getting fundraising from. A lot of organizations keep that really close to the chest because if I apply for a grant, I don't want every one of you to apply for that grant because it's going to be a lot harder for me to get that money, right? So we kind of keep that information close to the chest. But my thought is that if we make this information more available, if more people start applying for these grants, then yes, in the short term, it's going to make it more competitive. But I'll tell you what, the people who are most likely to be able to increase the amount of funding available to organizations that do work like this are the organizations that are already providing this support. So if we can put more pressure on them and show them that demand is increasing, then they can put more pressure on the people that fund them. So we're not going after new people that have never funded us before. We need to put pressure on the people that are funding us right now and tell them the demand is high and we need to increase the awareness of this. And it goes beyond, of course, just funding, sharing fundraising resources, but all sorts of resources. Political action. As we noticed, a lot of organizations don't really see political action as a role for their organization. And that might be purposeful because they don't want to interfere with any sort of local government or national government. They also might not want to cause any undue stress for the organization. And so, but I mentioned political action because if we really want to have fundamental change in our societies, in our communities, in our nations, then we need to be involved in the political process. It's not an option. And lastly, and I think everybody can appreciate this, the technology is key. Giving people access to technology, to computers and internet will transform the way that they work, and that is so crucial to helping these organizations grow. So I want to end with that. I'm going to welcome Andy back on the stage, and he's going to welcome our speakers, and I'm really looking forward to getting the feedback from you all about this, and I thank you again for your participation.